everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Today's Youth. And today we will be talking about youth conferences and their impact on youth, not only in Egypt but also around the world. We're going to be talking about the positive impact of youth gatherings in general. And on this issue, we're glad to be joined here at the studio by Ms. Ghadir Mohammed Al-Shami, lecturer of politics and diplomacy. Thank you very much for joining us, Ghadir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ghadir, I would like you to start by telling me more about your education, your studies, and your major field of study.
I studied political science and international relations. That was my major in the American University in Cairo. And I also studied political economy, psychology, and community development, but as minors.
Right. Ghadir, a large number of youth conferences took place in Egypt recently, among which were some of them were international youth forums, and some of them were national youth conferences. One of them was the African Youth Platform, Arab and African Youth Platform, that gathered the youth from Arab and African countries at the same time in Aswan. So we had really a successful experience when it comes to youth conferences. So tell me your opinion about the positive impact of youth conferences on youth.
It's definitely a very important move that Egypt has been actually taking towards youth development, because, you know, youth empowerment is a very important case, not only in Egypt, but also in the whole world. Especially, we're talking about developing countries. So definitely, youth empowerment is something that we need to work on, especially in Egypt, because, you know, youth are the builders of the future. And definitely, the state has to serve them in order for them to serve it back. And also, the youth is actually the majority of population here in Egypt. I'm talking about the age of 17 to 30.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, at the age of 17, the citizen maybe starts to, let me say, formulate their position in their society, and they start pursuing their studies, their career path. And so they need to be ready to be exposed to the society and maybe hit by it, because it's definitely a new experience that has new struggles and everything. And so we have to work as a state on the self-actualization for these youth, in order for them to know their worth, to know their role, and the importance of their valid and effective activity in the society.
Right. Ghadir, how do you see the keenness of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on meeting with the youth and having a continuous dialogue with them?
It's actually a very smart move, let me say, of him. And I think he is the first president of Egypt ever to pay this great attention to the youth, because he actually knows that we need to recruit the youth in this country. We need to efficiently put each and every one of them in their right place, because now we're living, you know, in this big openness we witness today. So each and every one has new ideas, has new thoughts, and this will definitely be effective in development. Mm-hmm. So I believe he's actually directing the whole country, not just the government, towards youth development, and he's paying attention also to this thing internationally, not just locally.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, youth conferences are a perfect opportunity for youth to meet together to discuss their future and issues of mutual concern. How do you see this?
For myself, I believe it's a very great experience. It's definitely indescribable, because, for example, talking about the World Youth Forum that happened in Sharm el-Sheikh, it was something universal. So you get to meet people from everywhere, all over the world. Also, talking about the Arab African platform that was held in Aswan, it gives you a chance to connect to people from the Arab region and also from Africa, which is our continent. And we definitely have a couple of very important and common challenges that we need to work together in order to solve. And talking about Egypt, I myself attended a couple of such conferences, and they were amazing for me because, you know, I get to meet people from Upper Egypt, from Noba, from Aswan, from Red Sea, and also Bedouins from Sinai. So I get to learn about these people. Like, what do they do? What do they dream of? And definitely we need to talk together in order for me to get educated about these areas, because, you know, we're living in Cairo, we don't get a chance to frequently visit there, and even if you visit, you don't get to go into like villages or into like people like locally and speak to them, know their problems. So we definitely need this, because other than the problems, the unified ones that we have all over the nation, there will be always some problems that are you know, specified and special to certain areas and certain minorities that we can never neglect.
Right. Well, Ghadir, we're going to go to this short break, and we'll be right back for you to tell us about your experience more in details with youth conferences. Welcome back, Ghadir. You told me you attended some of the youth conferences that were held here in Egypt. Would you tell me more about your experience, and specifically with the African Summer School?
This experience was definitely very rich for me, and it was so much fun and very informative, because I got to live with African people from 23 countries for around 10 days, like from morning to midnight even. We used to attend lectures together, to study together, to go for also field trips together. We also got guests and speakers from like everywhere in this country. Like every day we used to have around 5 speakers discussing a lot of topics that related to, you know, education, to development, to politics, diplomacy, health. We actually covered everything during this you know, conference, and it was very important because they didn't only speak about Egypt, but rather about the whole continent. because, as I mentioned, we had a high number. We were around 100 African persons. The majority were from Egypt, but we had a very big number from South Sudan, from North Sudan, from Nigeria, from Kenya, from Somalia, Eritrea, everywhere. So it was very, very great experience for all of us, because we got to know even about societal problems that we would never know until we go there and we go in villages. So it was very rich for all of us, definitely.
Right. Well, elaborating more on your experience with African youth, as you know, Aswan was declared as the capital of African youth. So how do you see the importance of this and its impact on future relations with African youth?
Definitely, announcing Aswan as the capital of the youth is a very intelligent move that was definitely initiated by President Abdel Fattah Sisi. As I mentioned, I think he's the first president ever to pay attention to the youth. And this came in parallel with the fact that Egypt now held the presidency of the African Union.
Definitely.
So definitely everyone now is putting Egypt under the scope in order for them to see how will Egypt, help the continent in general. And Africa is a young continent, and youth are, again, the majority of the population. So in order for us to solve the unlimited number of problems we have in Africa, we definitely need to focus on the youth, on their education, on their also communication, because, away in this continent, there are governments that, I wouldn't say like boycotting each other, but they don't have this proper method of communication, which will enable them to come together in order to help in the developmental agenda President Abdel Fattah Sisi has put in the African Union.
Right. Do you think that youth are now more concerned with the national issues here in Egypt than before?
Yes, I think so. I would date this back to the revolution of 2011, because personally speaking, that was my first time I dig deep in politics, because I started looking at Egypt as a state rather than of my hometown, or rather than of being just a nation. So it was a great time for me to dig deep in the field. And I think everyone else started, also digging deep and going further in politics, knowing their rights, knowing their duties, and getting educated, not just by education, but also by reading, by newspapers, by media, by social media, and so on.
Ensemble faisons la paix dans ce monde. Tous ensemble soyeux heureux dans ce monde. وتعالى أرض السلام بلاقي دي فيها أحباب متجمعين والليلة متجمعين على الخير والحب في عيوننا يبان والليلة أيوة مفيش ألوان من كل الدنيا جينا نقولها يلا وشباب الدنيا مالها الفرحة دي هنكملها أيامنا جاية نستنى ليه جاي اللي الدنيا بحالها وشباب الدنيا مالها الفرحة دي هنكملها أيامنا جاية نستنى ليه. Soyeux heureux dans ce monde. نتقابل هدفنا جيل بحاله شباب حقق أماله ووحد الاتجاه. والليلة
Ghadir, we cannot talk about youth and not focus on women, and of course the development that took place with regards to women recently, and specifically in Egypt.
Actually, this was very, promising. I think recently it's been improving, and specifically talking about the the political field. Like now we have as women higher representation in the parliament.
Definitely.
And this was a great move because this is the case in Europe, and this is also the case in a couple of successful experiences we witnessed also in Africa. So this high representation was definitely pushing for all women to pursue more their political participation in the Egyptian society.
Mm-hmm. You can see also a large number of women taking the post of ministers here in Egypt.
Yes, exactly. I was just about to mention
unprecedented.
this. Yes, like we have Minister Rania Mashat and Dr. Sahar Nasr. Definitely, they're doing a great job, and they are directly or indirectly actually encouraging all women all over Egypt in order to pursue their career and be successful in both areas, like whether you're in home or whether you're in your ministry.
Mm-hmm. Right. How do you see the role of the government in supporting youth in Egypt?
Again, under the instructions of President Abdel Fattah Sisi, the government has been recently focusing on the youth, definitely, and in a variety of means, like whether we're talking about education, whether of sports. Dr. Ashraf Subhi also is doing a great job in sports regards to the youth, and also in investment generally and in development, like trying to build mega projects just for the youth, for them to live there, like to reside in these compounds, for them to work. So this is definitely a great, a method of thinking about the development process. And again, something I would definitely shed the light on is the way that the government tends to harmonize the African youth with the Egyptian youth, because we actually have been missing this even in our education curriculum. Like if you spot someone African in the street, you would definitely think that they are Sudanese, but that's because you don't know that we have 55 African states all over the continent. So we definitely need to get proper education about them, about their people, their cultures, and everything in order for us to cooperate together and be able to solve our problems.
Right. Ghadir, what messages is Egypt rather sending to the whole world through holding its youth conferences regularly here in Egypt?
I think that Egypt is being, doing a great job in the terms of youth development, whether it's internationally, like we mentioned, the World Youth Forum, actually that was very successful, and it was really evident, and everyone all over the world talked about the success that Egypt actually made in organizing such a great and mega conference. Egypt is definitely qualified to be a great developer, and we're trying, although we have, I know, a long and hard road for us to reach the level of development that we really need and that would get us, satisfied, but we definitely can't go this way without developed, educated, and intellectual youth. And this will definitely happen by providing the youth with experiences and with communication and proper education, and definitely dialogue. Because, when you break the ice between the government, the president, and the people, that will definitely be helpful because we will reach the optimal developmental results.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, with all the development that we are passing through, as Egypt is passing through a very strong development phase with all the mega projects and intellectual development also, and the open dialogue also, as you said, between the government and the youth, how do you see the future to the Egyptian youth?
It's a very big question, but I'm very optimistic because, I have my friends. I know these people. They are willing to do like unimaginable things for the continent in general, like Africa, and for Egypt as a country. Now we became more aware, we became, more active, and now we have like unlimited chances in order for us to participate. Everyone participates on their own. Everyone can put their touch and put their expertise in their proper field. And that's why I said President Abdel Fattah Sisi always wants to recruit the youth very efficiently, everyone in their place, in order for us to be able to develop the country really well. Like each one has something to do. If they do their job well, then definitely we're reaching somewhere that's really, really good.
Right. A large number also of not only youth conferences, but development programs to the youth, like the PLP or the Presidential Leadership Program.
Yeah.
How do you see the significance of these programs in developing the leadership skills of the youth?
We definitely really like such programs in order for us to get ready and be able to get exposed to the Egyptian government and the Egyptian society, because such programs like PLP, they prepare their students not just by education but also by skills that you need when you go also internationally, not just nationally. Because when you're in school or when you are in university, you still have your limited community, but when you go further and you go broader, then definitely you will get new experiences and you will learn lots of things that you never even know they exist. And so you will widen your knowledge. You'll be able more to dig deep in the society in general, and eventually you will help in the developmental process that's intended.
Right. Ghadir, what message would you like to send to the youth from your place here?
I would send to them and to myself also. I think we should be very optimistic because Egypt is promising, the continent is promising. Africa has always been the richest continent of all. So there are chances and there are opportunities for investment, for work, for education, for anything you want. Also, even speaking about health care and medical care, it's actually developing. And the fact that Egypt now took the presidency of the African Union, so we definitely have a bigger influence than before. We've always known that Egypt is actually, the main building block in Africa, and it's actually the hometown of all African people, but still, now we have a bigger chance that we can show the world what we can do. And definitely this task cannot be done without intellectual youth who are actually capable of giving this country and giving this continent and also the whole world.
Right. Well, Ghadir, thank you so much for joining us and all the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
And dear viewers, with this we come to the end of this edition of Today's Youth. Many thanks for watching, and don't forget to join us next week, same time. Till then, goodbye.
Hard things are put on our way, not to stop us, but to call out our courage and strength.
الحياة أغلى من إني أضيع منها لحظة يأس أو إحباط. عايز أشارك وعايز أدي للناس أمل.
Yassine Zoghbi, a true story of Egyptian success. A young teenager determined to redefine disability.
انت نموذج يبين ان الاعاقه في المخ في الفكر. انت نموذج لي انا شخصيا.
Touring across the country, delivering youth voice around Egypt at the 4th National Youth Conference.
أسجل كل تقديري واحترامي ومحبتي ليك، وما افتكرش ان انا لوحدي اللي ممكن يكون شعوري كده تجاهك. انا بشكرك وسعيد بوجودك معانا.
Yassine Zoghbi sends a message. It's not our disabilities, it's our abilities that count.